It's time for overtime.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Still going. Good night. Touchdown.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is an early start to hour number 2. And speaking of being in the right place at the right time, I got Andrew and I got James on the line, set to duke it out, beat each other up in the parking lot for the High Noon Showdown prize pack. Couple goodies up for grabs today, including a gift certificate to the all-new Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats out on the east side of Sioux Falls. You get the grill fired up this weekend, maybe as soon as tonight. Maybe you got the afternoon off and you're playing hooky from work as we dive into this Friday start to the weekend. Wish you both the best of luck. But again, duking it out for the prize pack, the High Noon Showdown, brought to you always by the all-new Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats out on the east side of Sioux Falls. Andrew was our caller number 1. Quickest on the dial. Andrew, welcome into the show. Do you want your questions from List A or List B today, Andrew?
A.
A for Andrew makes sense to me. James is going to be on List B. Andrew's up to bat first. It is time for the High Noon Showdown on a Friday.
Put 'em up. Put 'em up. Are you out of your mind? Because we could go to war. I'm for real. I'm for real. So you better check yourself.
Doesn't have to be a fight in the parking lot, although we'd love to see that, actually. It's time to duke it out in this week's edition of the High Noon Showdown.
High Noon Showdown is brought to you by the all-new Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats. I believe that belongs to Mr. Gilmore. Happy Gilmore trivia coming up here soon in just a moment. But first things first, we got to dive in to some jersey number trivia, collegiate trivia as well. Andrew on the line. Caller number 1 chose List A. Andrew, what jersey number does Mike Conley wear with the Timberwolves?
10.
That's easy. That's correct. Andrew's off to a good start. I would venture a guess that Andrew was howling last night for the Timberwolves. Sounds like a T-Wolves fan to me. James is on line 2. James, what jersey number does, in my opinion, right now the second best player on the floor for the Denver Nuggets, Aaron Gordon, wear?
Oh, I'm going to say 12.
That is not correct. He wears number 50. Nope. You weren't close, but good try. James, another question for you. This guy is a free agent in the National Football League right now. The Minnesota Vikings and their fans might be interested in the services of one Hunter Renfrow. Where did Renfrow go to college, James?
Oh,
take your time. You got 10 seconds with me. You need to rack your brain.
Yeah.
He caught a game-winning, championship-winning touchdown pass in the national championship game. I don't know if that helps you, but give me an answer.
Clemson.
That is correct, James. I'm sure Andrew's mad at me now. Andrew, welcome back to the show. What college did new Cleveland Browns wide receiver Jerry Jeudy go to, Andrew?
Oh, I'm a Denver fan, too.
Oh, man. So you got to get this right.
Go Nuggets. Alabama.
Alabama is correct. Go Nuggets. That was a surprising one following the definitive. I guess Mike Conley bugged you so much last night that you had to have the number 10 memorized. Andrew, you can slam the door and stub James's toe into the weekend, and you can take the prize back in your grasp with this correct answer. Multiple choice. Happy Gilmore in the movie, I think it's a 1996 movie, was playing golf in that movie in order to give his grandma what? Multiple choice. A birthday gift, her old house back, or cash for medical expenses. What's the correct answer?
Her old house back.
That's so easy. Andrew, congratulations. You're the winner of the High Noon Showdown. You're off to the right foot of your weekend. Have a great weekend. I got the prize back for you to pick up today or next week here in Sioux Falls. Congrats, Andrew. All right, Andrew, our big winner. James, I hate to do it to you, but you missed out on Aaron Gordon. Your last question was going to be Happy Gilmore 2, reportedly in the works. In the first movie, What sport was Happy originally trying to go pro in? I think this is easy. I've seen Happy Gilmore no less than 295 times in my life. Tennis, hockey, or fishing. I'm a hockey player. I don't date hockey players. But again, hockey, the correct answer today for James. Unfortunately, got one wrong. Andrew was perfect. Tiebreaker today, by the way, Tiger Woods is first among active golfers and tied for first all time in PGA Tour history with this many victories. We always like to throw a number out there. 82 is the number you need to know. Tiger Woods is tied with one golfer at the top all time in PGA Tour victories. He's not at the top all time. That belongs to Jack Nicklaus in PGA Tour major victories. But Tiger Woods has 82 wins all time. What golfer is he tied with? The legendary Sam Snead. That's the High Noon Showdown. Andrew starting off the weekend in the best way possible. Andrew, again, I'll get the prize pack put together for you. It'll be available here at our studios. You have questions, dial me up or stay on hold. But let's dive in to your scorecard, headlines, and more for hour number 2. Certainly a lot going on in the sports world. We'll start the way we usually do this time of the year by getting you some sound from the hockey games last night. Stanley Cup playoffs rumbled on with the Rangers and Hurricanes colliding in Raleigh. Hurricanes were hanging around in the series, but no longer as the Rangers punch their way into the next round.
3 seconds to go, and it is over. The Rangers win. The Rangers win and advance to the Final Four. Wow, what a comeback.
5-3 the final last night. Big road win to close out the series. They win the series 4-2. Elsewhere north of the border, Edmonton and Vancouver tussled in a Game 5, and it was the Canucks winning on the home floor.
Face-off outside the Vancouver blue line. Miller wins the face-off forward all the way down, and that is going to do it! What an effort for the Vancouver Canucks tonight inside Rogers Arena. JT Miller scores the winning goal in the final minute of the third period. And the Canucks have pushed the heavily favored Edmonton Oilers to the brink, and they can win the series in Alberta on Saturday night.
3-2 the final. That audio courtesy of SN 650. Tonight in the NHL, pair of Game 6s, pair of potentially final Game 6s as well. Panthers at Bruins, 9 o'clock on TNT. Florida leads that series 3-2. Stars and Avalanche, 9 o'clock on TNT as well. Dallas with a 3-2 series advantage. NBA Finals last night. I don't need to tell you anymore. I don't need to sing your praises anymore, Timberwolves fans. I was wrong last night. Timberwolves locked down the Nuggets. Welcome back, Mike Conley.
Now in the hands of Mike Conley. Step back 3 on its way. Yes! Demolition. Game 6. Minnesota largest lead. 29 here in Game 6.
29 was the lead at that point. It was a 45-point victory last night. Here's last night's final call.
The final horn sounds and the 56 win Minnesota Timberwolves. An answer delivered. Down 3-2, led by as many as 50. And they run roughshod over the defending champs. 115-70 the final, and there will be a Game 7 Sunday in Denver.
There will be a Game 7 again Sunday to be determined in Denver. Anthony Edwards, 27 points, and the Timberwolves respond very well in Game 6.
Thought we left kind of a lot of meat on the bones offensively the other day. Guys did a good job of reacting to that. We always knew it was going to be a long series coming in. This has proven to be the case. To win it, you got to get 4. I didn't say how you got to get them. So it should be fun on Sunday.
It's been an unpredictable series thus far. I expect the same for Game 7. I don't know which way to go just yet, but Michelle Smallman pretty definitive in her lean for Game 7.
Denver is a dominant team. They're the defending champs, and you've got the defending MVP that you have to contend with. And just like I said, I knew Anthony Edwards was going to punch back and Minnesota was going to punch back. You don't expect that from Denver as well?
I do. I expect Denver to win a Game 7 at home.
I feel like our emotional pendulum keeps swinging pretty vastly in this series. So which side of the road do we feel like is the proper side to stand on as we go to Game 7? Because I have to tell you, after last night, I think Minnesota's going to take this thing. That's
Michelle Smallman on Unsportsmanlike. Minnesota with a ton of confidence. And I got to tell you this, from a standpoint of what have you done for me lately? What are you going to be in the near future? Minnesota needs to win this game because right now I can tell you nationally, when we've seen it in the sports world in the past, whether it's Minnesota teams or otherwise, you got these young teams, you got the teams with the stars, the teams with the good cohesive units, the good defensive teams, whatever it might be, a team that's on the rise like Minnesota. Right now, it's, oh, man, that's really cute. Look at them hanging around. Way to go, Minnesota. You're hanging around with Denver. How about you beat them? Could you imagine the national storylines coming up to start out next week on the show if Minnesota beats the defending champion, the defending MVP, the unstoppable Denver Nuggets? Finish the job, Minnesota, and then talk to me. That would be awesome. If they lose Game 7, this will be remembered as, man, what a great series. That was cool to see Minnesota hang in. They need to punch their ticket onto the next round, just like those Minnesota Vikings need to finally win on the big stage in the postseason, win a Super Bowl to shut up the critics. And I'm happy that they haven't won one yet. Don't get me wrong, but they need to get it done. Minnesota has to win this series in order to put a stake in the ground and say, hey, we're here. We're one of, if not the best teams in the NBA. People will say you got to win the whole thing after that. That's fine. But if you beat Denver, you take down the defending champs on their floor, Game 7, that would be a huge, huge altering moment for that franchise in a time of transition with ownership and so much more going on there. Minnesota winning that game could be massive. And frankly, I think it is very important that they do so coming up on Sunday, to be determined with that time. Nikola Jokic, defending MVP, current MVP, talking about Game 7 and if he likes his team's chances at home.
I mean, it can go one way or another, you know. I think that's why this series is interesting, because every team can win and lose, and it depends how the game's gonna open up. When you think about it, basically the only kind of interesting game was Game 1. When we lost, when it was kind of close. Game 2, they blow us out. The Game 4, we blow them out. Game 5, so basically, you know, hopefully we're going to blow them up in Saturday, Sunday. So it's going to be interesting, I think.
Hoping for a really good Game 7, because Jokic is right. Really, for as entertaining and unpredictable as the series has been, a lot of this has been decided at halftime, into the third quarter. It hasn't been crazy intriguing more often than not during the games. The game-to-game finals have been absolutely bonkers, but the games themselves have widely been kind of established and leaned a specific way by halftime, maybe a little bit beyond that. But it has been a lot of blowouts in this series so far. Back and forth we go, teeing it up for Game 7 in Denver on Sunday. Tonight in the NBA, Knicks at Pacers, Game 6 on ESPN. It's a 7:30 start time. And again, a lot to look forward to there. And the Knicks looking to accomplish something that they haven't in 24 years since their last conference finals appearance.
Just locked into this game. That's all we're thinking about. What do we have to do to win this game? So I think if you take care of all the steps along the way, then good things come from that. But when you start glossing over to the next step and what comes after, you're making a big mistake, because that takes the focus off the task at hand. And I think the task at hand is locking into what we have to do to win this next game in Indiana.
Tonight, again, Knicks at Pacers, Game 6, 7:30 on ESPN. Knicks lead that series 3-2. Saturday, Thunder at Mavericks, Game 6, 7 o'clock on ABC. Dallas holds a 3-2 series advantage. And on Sunday, Timberwolves at Nuggets, that time to be determined for a penultimate Game number 7. Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees have the Twins number. Not breaking news, but they earned the sweep yesterday.
Ryan looks at second twice, the 1-2. Breaking ball lifted, deep left center field. Kirilloff back on the run near the left center field wall. It's off his glove, and it caroms off the base of the left center field fence. Judge around third. He coasts home and scores standing up. Verdugo waltzes in a third. Gleyber Torres soars one to the left center field wall, and he's at second. The Yankees take a 2-0 lead.
Minnesota Twins go down via a 3-game sweep to the New York Yankees. Yesterday's final 5-0. The loss goes to Joe Ryan. He is 2-3 on the season. Other finals, Pittsburgh won in Chicago over the Cubs 5-4. Cincinnati puts the finishing touches on the Dodgers yesterday, 7-2 road win.
The 2-ball, 2-strike pitch, and Benson blasts one high and deep to right field. That is way back there, and long gone.
Oh, hello, L.A.
Will Benson right out of the gate, puts the Reds on top with a solo blast way out of here.
That audio courtesy of WLW. Today and tonight in Major League Baseball, Pirates at Cubs get started here very shortly, just over an hour from now, 1:20 from Wrigley. Other matchups, White Sox visit the Yankees, A's at Royals, Brewers at Astros, Cardinals home to the Red Sox. Guardians and Twins play 5:30 the start time tonight, 6:10 the official start time, 5:30 pregame coverage rather. You can watch it on Apple TV Plus, and your Twins weekend schedule in Cleveland all weekend, Saturday start time 5:10, Sunday at 12:40. Pregame coverage right here on ESPN Sioux Falls begins roughly 30 minutes before game time. AL Central Conference, AL Central Division standings as we get it going into the weekend. Cleveland still the team to beat, 27-17, 1.5 games clear of second place Kansas City, 2.5 games better than third place Minnesota. Twins record 24-19, followed by Detroit and the Chicago White Sox. WNBA final from last night. The New York Liberty absolutely boat raced the Indiana Fever last night, 102-66 at home. Home debut for Caitlin Clark, less than stellar, 0-2 their record. Clark 9.7 rebounds, 6 assists in the loss. Tonight in the WNBA, the Lynx are at home, 8:30 start time, playing host to Seattle. NASCAR's All-Star Weekend is ahead from North Wilkesboro Speedway. Coverage begins on Sunday, 4:30 on Fox Sports 1. And PGA Tour Golf PGA Championship continues through Sunday from Valhalla in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, in order to explain what happened this morning, I need some help from Jeff Darlington, who saw it in person. There was a pedestrian struck and killed in traffic outside near the country club in Louisville in the wee hours of the morning this morning. Following that, there was a change in traffic patterns that led to confusion among drivers, that led to some impatience among drivers, that led to world number 1 golfer Scottie Scheffler's eventual arrest this morning on 4 separate charges. He has been released. He's playing golf and playing pretty darn well right now. 2 under through 10, 6 under par. But Scottie Scheffler arrested this morning in Louisville. Here's what an eyewitness who happened to be Jeff Darlington had to say about what happened this morning in a chaotic and tragic morning near Valhalla Country Club.
Entering Valhalla Golf Club this morning, we witnessed a car pull around us that was Scottie Scheffler was in the car. To be very clear about the details here, Scottie Scheffler has been detained by police officers, placed in the back of a police vehicle in handcuffs after he tried to pull around what he believed to be security, ended up being police officers. They told him to stop. When he didn't stop, the police officer attached himself to the vehicle. Scheffler then traveled another 10 yards before stopping the car. The police officer then grabbed at his arm, attempting to pull him out of the car before Scheffler eventually opened the door, at which point the police officer pulled Scheffler out of the car, pushed him up against the car, and immediately placed him in handcuffs.
It is an unfortunate event either way, but first things first, want to be clear as to what happened as far as we know right now. We'll dive into the article from ESPN.com here momentarily, but again, early this morning, earlier than the Scheffler incident, there was a pedestrian struck and killed nearby in regards to low lighting and early wee hours of the morning, but also was a transit bus apparently struck a pedestrian. Unfortunately, that man did pass away. So police on the scene, already reportedly some construction and some convoluted traffic patterns in the area due to the tournament, even as the golfers arrived so darn early. This was very early Eastern time there in Louisville. So Scheffler pulls up and he's not so sure exactly where to go, looking to follow the same pattern as yesterday. And he didn't know that this was a police officer that was initially stopping him. Apparently had a conversation, proceeded. The police officer took it the wrong way, hopped on the car. And from then on, there were some injuries reported with the officer, 4 different charges, including a felony charge pressed an official against Scottie Scheffler. More on that to come in the show. But here is some more further details on that whole traffic flow situation. Michael Collins notes from ESPN Golf, other golfers, no problem reaching the country club this morning.
Earlier today, before I did the early Sports Center hit, there were golfers and caddies that were already here on site. That accident that happened around 5 a.m. had already had traffic in a bad way. The players and caddies that I talked to that drove in said they had no issues whatsoever getting past that checkpoint where Scotty Scheffler had the incident happen to him. 3 players specifically said they pulled in, they were just waved through. It was still dark. It was still raining, and there was no problem whatsoever.
There are so many details here that we need to know before we wax any opinions out on this. But again, all we can say is thoughts and prayers with the family of the individual that was killed this morning in Louisville in that traffic incident. And then the Scotty Scheffler Louisville PD thing just feels very, very confusing. Miscommunication, high stress, high anxiety, early hours of the morning, whatever it might be. It sounds like a miscommunication for the officer, for Scheffler, for everyone involved there in Louisville, Kentucky. A early stain on the PGA Championship this year. Scheffler, to be clear, once again, was posted or was booked in, was charged, was even in the orange jumpsuit as well for photos this morning. That's all over the internet right now. But he did get released. He got picked up reportedly by the Valhalla Country Club vice president as well as they got him back to the course. He made his tee time, even ate some breakfast there, and he's off to a good start today, 2 under par. But regardless, very tragic situation, very confusing situation from Valhalla Country Club as of this morning. More on that now. This is the ESPN.com article, so I want to read this word for word as we dive into this a little bit so I don't mince any details here. World number 1 golfer Scotty Scheffler was arrested by Louisville Metro Police this morning after trying to drive into the entrance of the golf club that hosts the tournament, the site of this week's PGA Championship, Valhalla Golf Club. Traffic outside the golf course had been stopped after a man was struck and killed by a shuttle bus around 5 a.m. Eastern Time. Scheffler now faces charges of second-degree assault of a police officer, third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic signals from an officer directing traffic. The assault charge is a felony. The others are misdemeanors. Major Jason Logsdon of the Louisville Metro Department of Corrections told ESPN that Scheffler was released around 8:40 Eastern Time this morning without bail. He arrived at Valhalla less than an hour before he was scheduled to tee off at roughly 10 o'clock Eastern. And here's what Scheffler had to say in a statement. This morning, I was proceeding as directed by police officers. It was a very chaotic situation, understandably so, considering the tragic accident that had occurred earlier. And there was a big misunderstanding of what I thought I was being asked to do. I never intended to disregard any of the instructions. I'm hopeful to put this aside and focus on golf today. To be clear, that's what he has done. He's midway through that round. According to ESPN reporter Jeff Darlington, who witnessed the incident, Scheffler was trying to drive around the crash scene on a median to get to where he was trying to go. A police officer instructed Scheffler to stop, but Scheffler continued to drive a little bit further toward the entrance. At one point, an officer attached himself to the side of Scheffler's car. Scheffler stopped his vehicle and turned into the entrance of the golf club. After about 20 or 30 seconds, Scheffler rolled down his window to talk to the officer. The officer grabbed Scheffler's arm to pull him out of the vehicle, according to Darlington, and the officer reached inside the vehicle to open the door, and once Scheffler was pulled out, he was pushed against the vehicle and placed in handcuffs. It is a crazy situation, miscommunication, again, high stress environment and a low-light environment, everything included in that. Very strange this morning. It's one of those headlines that you have to look a couple different places to say, hey, is this real? Is this legit? Because it feels very, very strange today. Tragedy first, Scheffler arrested second. Man, what a weird morning for golf, for the PGA Tour, for the PGA Championship, and for those folks in the police department down in Louisville, Kentucky. By the way, Sanford International Live's concert tickets are going on sale today. Third Eye Blind is the headliner at the Pentagon for Thursday, September 12th. Options for ticketing, general admission, as well as a combo of general admission and a grounds ticket for Friday, September 13th, which is the opening round of play. Also, you can get VIP pit tickets for the concert. Again, SanfordInternational.com, the place to go, with Third Eye Blind, the headliner, Thursday, September the 12th. Lastly, let's finish up your Reliabank headlines of the day with this. The 4th-seeded Augustana baseball team battled back after a 3-run first inning in not their favor to knock off 5th-seeded Central Oklahoma 4-3 last night in the first round of the NCAA Regional. The win moves Augie's win streak to 11, the longest active streak in all of D2 baseball. With the win, the Vikings move on to play Central Missouri for a spot in the final of the Central Pod 1 at 6 p.m. today. The Broncos, 36-15, will now take on Minnesota State in the losers bracket at 2 p.m. Caleb Sari settled in after allowing 3 runs in the first with 7 consecutive shutout innings and 7 strikeouts to move to 9-1 on the season. Augie battles back to surrendering 3 runs in the first inning to win over Central Oklahoma in Game 1. 4-3. They win Game 2. They win the region, and they will be on to the Super Regional round. Lastly, Augustana softball is the number 7 seed ahead of the national championships down in Orlando Sunday, and forward from then, Vikings will face 2-seed UT Tyler on Sunday at 3 o'clock Central. Here are your seeds there. Top seed to bottom seed. Auburn Montgomery the 1, UT Tyler the 2, Wilmington the 3, University of Indianapolis is the 4, followed by Charleston, Western Washington, Augustana, and Lenore Rhine. We take the break. When we come back, let's dive into that Friday parlay. We'll get that posted up right now. An opportunity to score some Twins tickets. Those tickets are coming up pretty soon. June 10th, the tickets up for grabs in this weekend's Friday parlay. Hit us on Twitter. Enter the parlay, always brought to you by High End Glass and Tobacco. We're back with that and more on Overtime next.
The best sporting matchups and coverage. We are ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Coming up on the final half hour of the show today and for the week. Always appreciate you listening, checking us out here on ESPN Sioux Falls, ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. If you're new to the show, new to the town, welcome. And go ahead and get on the bandwagon of the Friday Parlay. It's a great contest week in and week out. You guessed it. It hits on Friday. It's over the weekend. You make a few bets, make a tiebreaker bet as well, and you could win the prize pack. It's big every week. Sometimes features Twins tickets. We're in Twins season, and I got a 4-pack of tickets up for grabs today for June the 10th. 4-pack of tickets for June the 10th. Here are your picks. Friday Parlay brought to you by High End Glass and Tobacco. First pick is the NBA Game 6 coming up on Saturday night from Dallas. OKC at Dallas, and the Thunder are a 3.5-point underdog on the road. Minnesota looked good last night, looked great last night. Denver did not, but the Nuggets are still the favorite on their home floor for the final Game 7. Minnesota plus 4.5 at Denver. That is waned and waxed from 4 to 4.5 to 5 points the spread. I'm splitting the difference for ease and simplicity. 4.5 points the underdog for Minnesota. And pick number 3, Vancouver and Edmonton, Game 6 on Saturday night. That's a simple pick, no spread involved. Vancouver at Edmonton, Game 6. Tiebreaker, total points between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets for Game 7 on Sunday. You can enter now because I clicked the blue button on Twitter. It's officially posted at ESPN Sioux Falls. Enter now. The Friday Parlay up for grabs. Twins tickets up for grabs, as well as a gift certificate to High End Glass and Tobacco, and so much more. Always a big prize pack with the Friday Parlay, brought to you by High End Glass and Tobacco. We take the break. When we come back, yesterday we took about a whole hour to talk about that hideous team out to our north. What is that? Northeast Minnesota, the Vikings. We're going to talk my Packers when I come back. Packers schedule breakdown coming up next for the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers. That's next on Overtime. Before long, we'll be breaking down the horse race coming up this weekend. It is the Preakness from Baltimore. The best bets, the bad bets, the good bets, and everything in between. FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray will join us around 12:45. But immediately next, let's talk about those Green Bay Packers. Schedule breakdown on the way next on Overtime.
Streaming live app, this is Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO. Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is the Friday edition of Overtime. Pretty soon we'll be talking horse racing heading into the weekend. It is the second leg of the Triple Crown this weekend. The Preakness from Baltimore. We'll be checking in with FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray here in about 10 minutes. The latest and greatest news, the picks to make, the odds to make for this upcoming race for the Preakness over the weekend from Baltimore. First things first, though, diving into the news. After dazzling at cornerback and wide receiver for Colorado last year, Travis Hunter often hears people describe him as a video game player. Now he's on the cover of the long-anticipated return of the college football video game from EA Sports. Hunter, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, and Michigan running back Donovan Edwards share the cover of EA Sports College Football 25. And I gotta tell you, as somebody that used to play video games a ton, I haven't played video games in 5, 6, 7 years now regularly. Occasionally, I still think about it, but I got a family. And I got not a lot of free time. I have 3 kids at home. I don't have time to do that, but I'm really thinking about buying a PS5, PS6, whatever the heck it is, and getting this game, sitting there, getting some acne on my face, drinking some soda, staying up all night, ignoring my family, and smelling pretty bad in the basement, video gaming my face off to NCAA College Football 25, EA Sports College Football 25. So many memories with that game, in my opinion. Best sports video game ever made was 2013, 2014. Debatable between the two, but goodness, was that a missed video game. It's coming back. The trailer's out online. I'm excited. Probably not going to get it, but I certainly have thought about it a couple times. But again, a lot of responsibilities at home, not enough time to play video games, but I probably will end up doing it regardless moving forward. Let's talk about the schedule release now for the National Football League. We got the broad strokes of it yesterday on the show, the highlights, the international games earlier in this week. We zeroed in on the Vikings yesterday, and let's do that with the Green Bay Packers right now. Preseason schedule. They'll open up on my birthday, Bert's birthday, Saturday, August the 10th at the Cleveland Browns for preseason football. The week following, Sunday the 18th, at the Denver Broncos. And the following Saturday, their only home preseason game of the year, playing host to the Baltimore Ravens, a noon start time Saturday, August the 24th. I like preseason football, but generally speaking, nobody cares. Let's just get to the season. The season starts way far away from home for the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. It is the first NFL game ever to be played in South America, first ever one in Brazil, as Sao Paulo is the home at Corinthians, is the official venue there. Philadelphia Eagles are technically the home team. So yeah, would you rather play in Brazil against the Eagles than Philadelphia, one of the toughest places to play with the meanest fans in the NFL? I'll take it as the opener for the Green Bay Packers week 1. That is a Friday night ball game on September the 6th. Season opener Thursday with the Chiefs opening up the season against the Baltimore Ravens. So the Packers start on Friday night. They got a long week for their home opener against the Indianapolis Colts in week number 2. The first 6 weeks home at the Eagles, it's a international game, neutral site. Home to the Colts, at the Titans, home to the Vikings, at the Rams, home to the Cardinals. And I got to tell you, I'm really optimistic about those first 6 games, so much so that I think the Packers have a good shot of being 4-2, maybe 5-1 if they blow us all out of the water expectation-wise. The next 3 games before the Week 10 bye week, home to Houston, at Jacksonville, home to Detroit, could be pretty darn challenging. And by the way, weeks 2 through 8, a span of 7 games for the Packers. They have 6 of those games at noon, one of those games at 3:25. Bye week is week 10, out of the bye at Chicago. That should be a win given where the Bears are right now. But again, same applies for them. If they prove to be pretty darn good and Caleb Williams looks like a superstar out of the gate, that could be pretty darn tough for week 11. Home to San Francisco on a Sunday, and then home to Miami on Thanksgiving, all in the span of 5 days. Niners, Dolphins, that's tough, and the Packers have 4 straight primetime games. They play on Thanksgiving. They play a week later, another Thursday game at Detroit. Then Sunday Night Football at Seattle, and Monday Night Football home to the New Orleans Saints. That is a gauntlet. Niners, Dolphins, Lions, Seahawks, Saints, 5 weeks, 4 of those in prime time. The other one is part of a short week. And then the last 2 games of the season at the Minnesota Vikings Sunday, December 29th, and home to the Chicago Bears. That game and date to be determined. But that's the schedule for the Packers. Again, Eagles, Colts, Titans, Vikings, Rams, Cardinals to start it out. Last 3 before the Week 10 bye, Texans, Jags, Lions. And then down the stretch, this is really hard schedule for the latter half of the season. Week 11 out of the bye in Chicago. Home to the Niners, home to the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. At Detroit for Thursday Night Football, at Seattle for Sunday Night Football, home to the Saints for Monday night, at Minnesota, and home to Chicago. And for those of you Viking fans out there that remember the bet from last year, I'm keeping it going for as long as I'm screaming into this microphone here in the 605 with you folks. If the Vikings beat the Packers regular season, postseason, or otherwise, I'll run to work the following day, assuming it's safe for me to do so. I don't want to run to work and not be able to make it work, although a lot of you out there that wear purple and gold probably want to see me die in a blizzard on a run on a day to work. But I got to tell you, I'm already nervous about that second Vikings game. Not only is it in Minnesota, not only will J.J. McCarthy be more experienced at that point, but it's Sunday, December 29th, and I know anything. It was 16 degrees for my run last year when the Packers lost to the Vikings at home. And I have a feeling December 30th will be pretty nippy out there when it comes to Bert running to work. But the good news is I think the Packers sweep the Vikings this year. But we'll wait and see, Vikings fans. That's the Packers schedule from a broad strokes perspective. We take the break. We come back to finish up the show talking all about the Preakness. And we'll react a little bit as well to a scratched horse as far as going into the betting field. The favorite to win it all has been scratched from the field. What's the best bet now? Who's got the best odds now? We'll also talk a little bit about the Kentucky Derby with FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray. He joins us next on this Friday edition of Overtime.
ESPN's More of Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is the final segment of the week. Friday Parlay is posted live right now on Twitter. Enter right now at ESPN Sioux Falls for your chance to win big. Friday Parlay always brought to you by High-End Glass and Tobacco. This weekend from the Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore is the 149th running of the Preakness Stakes. It is a 5:50 Central Time start. Network coverage on NBC. That coverage begins as soon as 3:30. And there's a lot of news and nuggets to get to. And with that, we'll dive right in to the phone lines. ESPN Hotline is FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray joins us now on the ESPN Hotline. Simon, it's great to have you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you. I'm right here at Pimlico as we speak.
And we're excited to talk to you. And first things first, I wanted to get your take on the Derby. What did you make of the overall race, the drama, the finish, Mystic Dan on top, and also sprinkle in a little horse interference at the end of the race. Take us through that finish and what you thought about it.
Yeah, one of the most thrilling finishes in the 150-year history of the race. I haven't seen a finish like that for many, many years. The 3 horses separated by nose. Obviously, there was a little controversy with the back and forth between Sierra Leone and the Mystic Dan and some of the other runners in there. But ultimately, they elected to keep the result as stood. I'm not sure that's, the right thing to do. The problem with our sport is transparency, and that those decisions go up to the stewards. And we don't really know how they deliberated and why they deliberated. But they let the result stand. So, we'll have to let it play out on the racetrack this weekend and see how Mystic Dan does, whether he can parlay that Derby win into a Preakness win.
Simon Bray of FanDuel TV is our guest here, rounding out this Friday edition of Overtime. You can find him on Twitter at FanDuel TV Simon, Simon. Let's talk about the Preakness first thing. Educate us as if somebody's never watched it before. What are the differences between the Preakness Stakes and the Kentucky Derby in terms of length, the field, and anything else we need to know that differ between the two races?
Yeah, it's something. The Triple Crown is very unique in horse racing. First of all, the Kentucky Derby was run 2 weeks ago at 1.25 miles. That's the furthest these 3-year-olds will ever run. And now the Preakness is coming back in 2 weeks. There's never a situation in horse racing where horses come back on 14 days rest. That's why it's a true test stamina and resiliency. So the Preakness is just a little bit shorter than the Kentucky Derby. It's 1 mile and 3/16, so it's 110 yards shorter than the Kentucky Derby. Configuration of the track a little bit different, but I don't think that plays into it much. And the field is usually a little smaller. A lot of the horses in the Kentucky Derby don't come back in 2 weeks to run in the Preakness for the reasons I mentioned. It's just not something you do with horses very often. The only horses that really do it are those that run well in the Derby. The Derby winner usually always comes back by any unforeseen circumstances, and then you get a couple of also ran. So we've got Mystic Dan coming off the nose victory, and, his chances have gone up exponentially in the last 24 to 36 hours. One, because, Moose scratched as a Bob Baffert runner, a morning line favorite, Moose 8-5. He scratched because he flew here from California and ended up getting a little fever and was sick a couple of days ago. And secondly, the fact that we're going to have a lot of rain tomorrow afternoon here in Baltimore, Maryland, and that is absolutely going to help Mystic Dan's chances. He's ran on a wet track once, and it was by far his best winning margin. He won by 8 lengths that day.
Mystic Dan, the odds right now that I'm finding 5-2. I know those change basically minute by minute. Catching Freedom, one of the better odds as well, 6-1. Other big names up there. When it comes to the chances of Mystic Dan being able to win this second leg of the Triple Crown, of course, the short rest is the big concern, and not the greatest results on short rest in his young career, racing history. But what are some other concerns or obstacles for Mystic Dan this week?
Well, I think the quick turnaround. Look, and historically we say horses don't like to come back in 2 weeks, but historically the Kentucky Derby winners have done very well in the Preakness coming back on 2 weeks. Whether they can go ahead and win the Triple Crown 3 weeks from now at the Belmont, that's a different matter. But the quick turnaround has been effective for them. The thing with Mystic Dan, like I said, he's got 2 chances of helped him. Moose scratching, the wet weather coming. What's against him is that turnaround, because he's done it once before, and arguably it was his worst performance. He ran on the 12th of November last year, came back on the 25th, and didn't run a very good race. Ken McPeak said immediately after the Kentucky Derby, he's not sure he would run here in the Preakness because of what happened in the past, and that the horse would dictate whether he came here. Horses, I'm a former trainer, and the only way horses I can tell you how they are on the inside is by the way they look on the outside. And we have to monitor how they eat, how they train, how they look. And the way he eats is a big indicator of whether he would be good enough to come here to the Preakness. And McPeak said after the Derby, even though it was a hard race, he started eating up and got right and feet up, and that's why he's going to be a tough horse to beat. But the thing, up against it, he's up against is new shooters coming in, fresh faces. You've got horses that are coming. They come in here sharp, and that's going to point me to a horse like Tuscan Gold, lightly raced. He comes in as a fresh face shooter. I think he has a big, big chance to upset.
And there's all sorts of storylines heading into this weekend at the Preakness, Baltimore, Maryland. Tuscan Gold 8-1. Imagination, another favorite horse at 6-1. A couple long shots here, relative 20-1 odds for Uncle Heavy and Mugatu. We're talking with FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray. Simon, when it comes to FanDuel's coverage and the opportunity, of course, to engage with FanDuel, place some bets on the race and everything else, what's going on special at FanDuel this weekend?
Oh, man, we are loaded, soup to nuts here. We've got full coverage of TV, social channels, where people about 30 feet from Mystic Dan as we speak, about 20 feet from Catching Freedom. So we have great location. We have everything available in our FanDuel Sportsbook in the states that are available. You can bet the Preakness, you can bet sports. It's the only one wallet sportsbook in the country, and our FanDuel racing app. So we've got a lot to offer. It's something we take very seriously here at FanDuel. We have a big weekend at the Kentucky Derby, and look.
And I think we're losing Simon Bray, FanDuel betting analyst. I'll try again to get him in just 1 second. But again, just a little bad cell service there. We'll dive in and try to get him back on in just a second. But again, Simon, if you can hear me, we were breaking up a little bit as far as the cell service goes. So I'm going to try it again. As far as your guys' events, we got some of those on the air with you. But give me a horse or two. You mentioned Tuscan Gold. Give me one other horse that you think will exceed expectations coming up on Saturday.
Okay, I'll just follow up on Tuscan Gold a little bit. I think he's got a big shot. Chad Brown has done 2 Preakness stakes. He's done it with horses, didn't run in the Kentucky Derby, and Tuscan Gold is bred to like the wet track. So I think that horse is interesting. Everybody thought Bob Baffert's chances were shot when Moose scratched. He had another horse in there called Imagination. And while he doesn't have nearly the form of some of the others, he's going to get a little play because it's Baffert. But he could be, he even though Moose scratched, he could win him the Preakness. I really believe it because there's not a whole lot of pace in this race. Mystic Dan likes to come from off the pace. Catching Freedom likes to come from off the pace. Imagination, if he goes to the lead, he could be tough to catch. And that would be a fairy tale story not only for Baffert, his horses weren't eligible to run in the Kentucky Derby, but he's employing Frankie Dettori, arguably the best rider in the world, champion jockey in Europe multiple times. He retired from race riding, left the Europe behind, came back, resurrected his career. He took a sabbatical and then started back up here in the U.S., based in the U.S. And if he wins an American Classic, it will be tremendous for Dettori and Baffert.
Can't wait for the weekend again. It is the 149th running of the Preakness Stakes from Baltimore. 5:50 the broadcast coverage. NBC for the post time. NBC broadcast starts at 3:30 Central. That's FanDuel betting analyst Simon Bray. Simon, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks so much for the time. Have a great weekend there with FanDuel and all the great coverage.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's Simon Bray with FanDuel. Again, you can find him and his work on Twitter. Easy place to find him at FanDuel TV Simon on Twitter. And a big weekend ahead for the folks at FanDuel and everyone there at the Preakness Stakes. It's leg number 2 of the Triple Crown Kentucky Derby in the books. Preakness is up next. And again, if you don't want to miss it, 5:50 the start time on Saturday on NBC. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully the Wolves can get it done on Sunday. We will wait and see. Talk to you Monday when the next edition of Overtime rolls around right here on ESPN Sioux Falls.